Chapter 1131. Olivia slept soundly that night. The view of the snowscape from her room was amazing. It had 270-degree panoramic floor-to-ceiling windows, and the motorized curtains would draw automatically. As Olivia gazed at the white snow outside falling onto the white walls and black tiles, she felt like she was teleported back into ancient times. After a simple washing up, Olivia put on her mask again. Then, she opened the door, heading out to prepare breakfast for Mason. A chill quickly enveloped her when she stepped out of the room. She felt so cold that she sneezed. The deeper it was in the winter months, the colder it would get. Olivia gazed in the distance, thinking about Connor. Ethan had told her that Connor was sent to an island for training, so she couldn't see him for now. When spring came around next year, Connor would have a month off. Connor must have gotten much taller. Good morning. Linus was wearing thin short sleeves as he did aerobic exercises in the yard. The tight-fitting t-shirt outlined his perfect figure, and his handsome face was filled with sweat. "You're up very early, Mr. Linus." "It's a habit now." Olivia nodded and turned to head toward the kitchen, but Linus called out to her. "By the way, Vanessa, the Heath family is holding a banquet tomorrow night." Compared to Crystal, Linus was considerably older, so his marriage was more important than hers. Some young ladies from prestigious families were probably invited to the banquet tomorrow night so that Linus could go on blind dates with them. "Oh, shall I stay out of sight, then?" "You're getting the wrong idea. Father was able to escape death all because of you. The banquet is also held to celebrate Father's recovery. You must participate. I'll accept the invitation, then." Having learned their lesson, Crystal and Tatiana didn't cause any trouble for Olivia in those 2 days. Olivia lived quite comfortably. In the evening, Crystal was making preparations for the banquet at night. She not only focused her effort on skincare and beauty treatment, but she also hired someone to style her. "Hasn't my evening gown arrived?" "It's here, Miss Heath." A maid handed her a white evening gown. The gown had a diagonal slit, so while it looked reserved, it still had some sexiness to it. "Hold on, what's that in your hands?" "Mr. Linus has prepared this evening gown for Vanessa." Crystal snorted. How is she worthy of a tailor-made gown? Peering at it, she saw that it was a pretty gown with a pearly sheen. It was made of a different fabric from the one she was wearing. If Olivia wore that gown and stood under the lights, everyone's gaze would be focused on her. Crystal was indignant. What right did that wench have to hog all the attention? "I want this one." "Bah, but I won't be able to explain this to Vanessa." "Please don't make things difficult for me, Miss Heath." Crystal randomly grabbed a black dress from her wardrobe, which still had its tag attached. Then, she tossed it into the box. "Just give her this." Her skin was slightly off color, so she didn't look good in black. 3 years ago, when Crystal saw Olivia's real face at the hospital, she was finally aware of the huge gap between them. After that, she asked Linus to transfer her to an office position. Then, she took great care of her body and lost quite some weight. Even though she didn't have Olivia's looks, her figure was more slender and graceful compared to 3 years ago, and her skin had cleared up quite a bit. If she wore the shimmering beige gown, it would complement her already tall figure, especially when paired with the makeup done by a professional makeup artist. She wouldn't look ethereal, but after some serious dressing up, Crystal would still look quite good. She twirled in front of the mirror, satisfied. Now, she could already wear high heels like it was nothing. Her movements had also gotten more feminine. She believed that this would be enough for her to charm Ethan. Tatiana dismissed the maids before taking Crystal's hand and saying, "With your reputation on the line, you have to succeed tonight. There's no room for failure." Chapter 1132. As night fell and patrol cars cleared the way, the chefs for the banquet began making preparations. Olivia never thought that she would get an opportunity to taste the food served at a grand banquet again. Reaching out, she caught a snowflake drifting down. She thought of herself 7 years ago when she had just received news that she had cancer. She had thought that she wouldn't be able to make it past that winter. As Olivia stood in the antique hall, gazing at the guests who were dressed in formal attire and carrying themselves politely, she felt like she was in a dream. She not only survived, but she also gained a few adorable and understanding children. Even though she wasn't the star of the show today, when she made her appearance, everyone focused their attention on her. Crystal was dressed in a graceful and dignified manner. She wore lots of jewelry, and she finally looked the part of a young lady from a distinguished family. In contrast, Olivia made her way to the hall from the corridor, emerging from the darkness into the light. She was wearing the black dress Crystal had casually tossed to her. The fitted black dress was quite unforgiving to the wearer's figure. The highlight of the black dress was the chest area, adorned by some small black velvet threads. Olivia was wearing tassel earrings as well. She looked charming and gorgeous with every movement she made. Olivia drew everyone's attention as soon as she appeared. The people who were gathering around Crystal immediately flocked around Olivia instead. "You're Dr. Vanessa, right? I didn't expect you to be so young. Vanessa, sorry for bothering you, but my grandpa has a severe health condition. I've been looking for you for a whole year, and I've finally met you here. Can you take a look at my grandpa? You're the miraculous doctor, right? I've heard of your great name a long time ago. The doctors can't do anything about my mother's illness anymore. Can you please save her?" The people surrounding Olivia were there for completely different reasons, but they were all asking her to treat the sick. Olivia was right, people had to suck up to her to get her help. Meanwhile, Crystal didn't expect that black dress to look so good on Olivia. Olivia's skin was glowing, and her fair skin contrasted with the black dress perfectly. She looked both seductive and cold, rousing the desire in men to get her. Those people were talking to Olivia because of her medical skills. Crystal was confused when she saw that. All of Crystal's glory was given to her by the Heath family. Without the Heath family, she was nothing. But Olivia was different. Crystal looked down on Olivia's background, but Olivia didn't even have to do anything. She just stood there quietly and people were already paying attention to her. Olivia carried her own glory and fame. No wonder she was so bold and confident. Crystal was immensely jealous of Olivia. Just then, the male guests had arrived, so Crystal quickly put on a nicer expression. When Linus saw the dress Crystal was wearing, he suddenly frowned. He had picked out that dress for Vanessa, so why was Crystal wearing it instead? Then, Linus glanced at Olivia. If Crystal was wearing Vanessa's dress, then what was Vanessa wearing? Olivia leaned against a chair, her right arm casually draped over the back of the chair as her other hand held a glass of champagne. The curves on her body were completely exposed as she confidently chatted with the others. She was quite a sight to behold. Nothing was hiding her wonderful figure, and she didn't look like a mother who had given birth before. She looked more like a hot girl. But the air about her wasn't tainted at all. The elements of purity and charm were perfectly combined in her. With just one glance at her, Linus found it hard to look away. Ethan was furious when he saw Olivia. He couldn't believe that Olivia had decided to go with that outfit. Yale sensed that something was off. Both Ethan and Linus were eyeing the same woman. It was true that Vanessa was quite stunning at first glance, but when Yale saw that it was Vanessa, he looked away and moved toward Crystal instead. "You look quite pretty tonight, Crystal." Chapter 1133. When Yale talked to Crystal, it was just like how Crystal talked to Ethan. The one getting the attention never had much interest in the person giving them attention. Crystal glanced at Yale indifferently before replying in a careless tone, "Thanks." With that, Crystal made her way to Ethan. Yale, who was ignored, clenched his fists in secret. Ethan was wearing a formal suit and leather shoes. Paired with his half-mask, he looked not just handsome but full of mystery as well. A lot of women had their eyes on him. Sova, lifting the hem of her skirt, Crystal joyfully ran over to him. Olivia swirled the crystal glass in her hand, smiling as she watched the fairy tale-like scene. Crystal was very tall, so she wore heels that were only 2 inches tall. When she ran toward Ethan, she accidentally slipped, and she looked like she was about to fall onto Ethan. Under such circumstances, if Crystal tripped and fell, she would make a fool of herself. No one would turn a blind eye to that, and Crystal had considered that as well. But she didn't expect Ethan to push Kelvin, who was behind him, forward. Kelvin was extremely resistant to the idea. But now that he was put on the spot, he could only behave as he was expected to. Kelvin reached out both hands to stop Crystal. "Are you okay, Crystal?" With a reddened face, Crystal glared coldly at Ethan. But since they were in public, she decided not to cause a fuss. "I'm fine. That's good to know." Kelvin hastily let go of her. Meanwhile, Ethan walked away as if it wasn't any of his business. Reaching out, Linus placed a hand on Crystal's shoulder as he put on a concerned look. "Crystal, were you hurt?" Crystal shook her head. "I'm fine, Linus." Linus brought Crystal to a quiet corner. Then, he lowered his voice and asked, "What's with the gown?" "Oh, this. Vanessa said that she didn't like this color, so I exchanged mine with hers. Look how flirty she looks. She probably doesn't like the one you picked out because it's too simple for her." Linus reprimanded her in a low voice. "Shut up. Do you think I don't know her personality well enough?" Throughout his interactions with Olivia, every time he tried to chat with her, she would leave early in the conversation. Even when they talked alone, she would keep her distance from him. Even Linus was confused. With his looks and status, many other women would try to get on his good side. Now that Crystal was claiming that Olivia was being flirty, Linus knew straight away that she was lying. "I'm warning you, don't cause any trouble during this event. If not, when father gets mad, even I won't be able to protect you." Crystal stomped her feet, putting on an upset expression. "Did she charm you guys or something? Why are you all speaking up for her? I'm not blind. If you can be as well behaved as Vanessa, I won't have to worry about you." With that, Linus left coldly. Crystal was arrogant, but she wouldn't cause a ruckus during important gatherings like this. When Linus came back, he saw Olivia surrounded by even more people. They were most probably asking for her help. Olivia's hands were getting tired from accepting all the name cards. Olivia sighed. Exasperated, she put a hand to her forehead. She felt like a celebrity at an autograph event. Linus strode over to her. Then, he behaved like a gentleman as he put a hand on her shoulder, clearing a path for her with his body. "Sorry, everyone. Vanessa won't be having private discussions today. It's about time, so please take your seats." Olivia knew that Linus was just helping her out, but when he put his hand on her shoulder, she still stiffened a little. To avoid trouble, Ethan was standing a distance away. But when he unexpectedly saw that scene, he held the glass in his hand so tightly that he almost broke it. According to his knowledge of Linus, Linus most probably was interested in Olivia. This wasn't a good sign. Chapter 1134. Linus could feel Olivia's body turning stiff. He hastily took his hand away, saying, "Sorry, I just noticed that there were too many people gathering around you." Taking a step backward, Olivia put some distance between them. "It's okay, I understand. You should go and greet the guests, Mr. Linus. You don't have to worry about me. Be careful, then. You can talk to me if anything comes up." Linus gave her a meaningful gaze before leaving. Lifting his hand, he rubbed his fingers as he recalled the sensation of her skin. Did all women have such smooth skin? An odd feeling rose in his heart. He felt like there was a fire in his heart. The guests all took their seats. About 30 guests had turned up today, and everyone was conversing in hushed tones. They were all quite courteous. Some of them greeted Mason before taking their seats. Taking Mason's hand, Tatiana constantly kept a gentle smile on her face. She always looked so gentle and gracious around outsiders. If it weren't for what happened with the butler, Olivia wouldn't have discovered Tatiana's true colors. Linus waved at Olivia, gesturing for her to sit at his table. "Vanessa, come and sit here." Olivia was about to take a seat at the side, but she was forced to go over. Everyone instantly looked at Olivia. All the guests had prominent identities, so Olivia felt very pressured. "Mr. Heath, this is the miraculous doctor, Vanessa, right?" Smiling, Mason said, "Yes. She may look young, but her medical skills have gained the approval of even Mr. Moran and Mr. Crosby Sr. I've only ever seen her name in articles, but I didn't expect to finally see her in person today. She has achieved so much even at her young age. That's quite remarkable." Olivia said, "Everyone, you're too kind. I was just lucky. What a rare sight. Vanessa isn't just skilled in medicine, but she's so humble and keeps such a low profile as well. Everyone only knew that she had saved Mason, but they didn't know about Mr. Gatsby. Even so, that was enough reason for them to admire her. Crystal gritted her teeth in hatred. She was Mason's biological daughter, but everyone was flattering Olivia instead. Tatiana patted Crystal's hand, warning the latter against causing a ruckus during the event. They had a more important mission to carry out today. Tatiana was sitting on Mason's right whereas Linus was sitting to the left of him. Olivia ended up sitting next to Linus. Even though Linus didn't mean anything by his actions just now, Olivia felt a little awkward. She subconsciously moved away from him. A dark figure appeared. Then, Ethan boldly took his seat. Why was he here too? In an instant, Olivia was flanked by Linus and Ethan on each side. She had a feeling that Ethan must have caught sight of Linus putting his hand on her shoulder just now. Ethan wouldn't just leave it like that. Crystal stared at Ethan in disappointment. She had told him to sit with her, but Ethan walked straight up to that wench instead. Everyone knew that Crystal had been trying to court Ethan for years. So, they dared not take their seats recklessly. When Yale saw Ethan sitting down, he asked quietly, "Crystal, can I sit next to you?" "Whatever." Crystal's voice was cold. Of course, Yale was offended by how differently Crystal treated him compared to Ethan. But for the sake of his goals, he could only force a smile and endure it. Linus asked first, "Vanessa, do you like sweet or savory foods more?" Before Olivia could reply, Ethan spoke up. "She likes spicy food. The spicier the better." Linus looked at Ethan. "Ethan, you seem to know Vanessa quite well." Chapter 1135. Ethan smiled half-heartedly. "When Vanessa was treating me back then, we spent every waking hour together. I know a thing or two about her habits." Ethan's reply was completely fine. However, Linus wondered if he was hearing things, for he felt like Ethan had emphasized the words, "spent every waking hour together." After Ethan said that, he looked away as if he had never said anything. In an attempt to avoid trouble, Olivia didn't say anything more to him. She tried not to draw attention. After all, it was a banquet, not some outdoor restaurant. The dining atmosphere was very quiet, and only the sounds of the piano being played live could be heard. Olivia looked at the dishes, presented like a masterpiece. Even common vegetables were carved into the shape of flowers. After the banquet, Mason excused himself. He said that he wanted the youngsters to mingle around. It was a clear sign that he had intended for this banquet to be a blind date of sorts. Tatiana was taking the opportunity to check out the potential candidates who could become Linus' bride. The women who received the invitations all came from wealthy families. They were genuine rich young ladies, and every movement they made was elegant and graceful. Also, as expected, they all had high academic achievements. They excelled in terms of both family and academic background. In contrast, looks didn't quite matter. Tatiana nudged Linus. "It's a rare occasion for you to come back and stay for so many days, so let's get your marriage settled while you're at it. Have a look at the women here." Linus held the unlit cigarette between his teeth, looking a little upset. "Mom, I don't intend to get married yet. You're in your 30s, so you should start thinking about it. Look at Ethan. His son can even go on missions now, but you're still single. No matter what, you have to try getting along with women. Women are troublesome. What's so troublesome about them? Hurry and go ahead. The women who turned up tonight look quite decent to me. In terms of personality and academic achievements, all of them are worthy of you. Remember, this is your dad's order too. No matter what, you'll have to get a dance partner later." Linus tossed the cigarette away. "Ah, you're so annoying." He looked at the crowd. Most of them were familiar faces. Even though he didn't have any private connections with them, they had grown up together. All the women Linus eyed felt their hearts racing. After all, no one would want to decline the position as his partner. But Linus wasn't interested at all when he met the passionate gazes. When his gaze fell upon Olivia, who was sitting alone by the window and admiring the snow, he realized that he couldn't look away anymore. Olivia's features were quite common, but at that moment, she exuded a sense of loneliness that closed her off from the world. For some reason, Linus had the urge to protect Olivia. Linus walked over to Olivia and then stopped beside her. Vanessa, Ethan's voice interrupted him. I've finally found you, Vanessa. Can you be my dance partner? Olivia looked at Ethan. Then, she nodded. Sure. Ethan turned to look at Linus. What were you going to say? Linus had to force back the words he was about to say. Nothing. I was just going to ask Vanessa if she needs anything. Smiling, Olivia said, thank you. It's quite lively tonight, and I like it a lot. I don't need anything. If there's anything Vanessa needs, I'll help her with it. You should talk to the other guests, Ethan said sincerely. Linus had no choice but to change his mind. All right, please take good care of Vanessa. When Linus had turned around and left, the sincere look remained on Ethan's face as he gently pinched Olivia's waist. You're quite something. Is there anything wrong with Mr. Linus? Ethan looked away. It's nothing. Chapter 1136. Olivia frowned as she looked at Ethan in dissatisfaction. She had no idea what he was getting at now. Ethan didn't say anything as he took a seat next to her. Crystal walked over to Ethan, looking at him hopefully. Sova, can you be my dance partner later? No, I've already found a dance partner. Ethan pointed at Olivia. Crystal's expression instantly shifted. Her. What about her? Ethan turned to look at Olivia. Vanessa, let's go over there to dance. All right. Ethan got up. With one hand behind his back, he gestured an invitation toward Olivia with his other hand. He looked very gentlemanly indeed. Olivia placed her fingertips on Ethan's palm. Ethan's large hand gently closed around hers as if it were a flower. Under the mask, Olivia's face was slightly tinted red. This seemed to be her first time dancing with Ethan. Ethan held Olivia's waist boldly whereas she leaned against his chest. They were the parents of a few children by now, but at that moment, they behaved as if they had just fallen in love. Ethan's palms were sweating a little. Now that Crystal's plans to dance with Ethan had failed, Yale took the opportunity to approach Crystal. Crystal, may I ask you to be my dance partner? No, Crystal had been spoiled since young, and she would get anything she wanted at all costs. She would never settle, for she only wanted the best. Even though Ethan was already dancing with Olivia, Crystal refused to settle for Yale. Linus shared the same opinion. He declined the invitations from a few women who asked him to be their dance partner. Then, he reached out toward Crystal. Crystal had a look of disdain on her face. Linus, you're not young anymore, but you can't even get yourself a dance partner. How embarrassing, Linus sneered. You talk like you've already found a dance partner. I just declined them. If I were willing, tons of men would come over to me. Linus said coldly, if you want no one but Ethan, I think you should give up instead. That man will never fall for you. While you have time, you'd better choose another target. I swear I'll get him to prove you wrong. What about you? Weren't you going to ask Vanessa to dance just now? Linus felt a little guilty. Who told you that? I was just worried that she can't get used to this place all alone. Her. Have you ever seen those men looking away from her? Linus, don't tell me you like the young wife type. No wonder you never found a wife. I'm telling you, you can play with women like her, but don't ever dream of marrying her. Do you know how old her daughter is? Linus replied, nonsense. I don't have those intentions. It's best if you don't. I don't like her at all. I can't believe Sova chose to dance with a woman like her just to avoid me. How infuriating. They both thought that Ethan did this to avoid Crystal. They never once wondered about the relationship between Ethan and Olivia. As the lights dimmed, the atmosphere and music were perfect. Ethan whispered in Olivia's ear, Liv, I want to kiss you. Olivia pinched his arm lightly. No way. He let out a deep and pleased chuckle. What about later at night? She raised an eyebrow at him. We're in the Heath residence. Do you dare act so recklessly? Her body was flung out, and in the next second, he pulled her back. She leaned against his chest, listening to his low mutters. As long as I want to, no one can stop me. Liv, I came just for you. Chapter 1137. Watching her children dancing together, Tatiana was all fired up. The party was meant to be a blind date in disguise, and yet her children didn't give her peace of mind at all. It seemed like she could only depend on her own. When the song ended, Ethan could barely let Olivia go, but he did it anyway. Tatiana approached them. "Ethan, Vanessa, thank you so much for helping my husband." "Cheers. I simply did what I had to, Mrs. Heath. It's my job to share your burdens. You're too humble. Both of you have to drink this no matter what." Tatiana beckoned a waiter over. The waiter served them 3 glasses of wine. She took one of them, and the couple took the remaining. "Here, Vanessa, I'm sorry for what happened between you and my daughter. It's my fault for spoiling her too much. I hope you'll look after my husband in the future. Don't be such a stranger, Mrs. Heath." Olivia didn't think that Tatiana was being sincere with those words, but she had to keep it courteous. "Let's put everything to an end here. Cheers." Olivia and Ethan exchanged glances before drinking. Crystal, who was standing afar, watched him drink the alcohol. A smile appeared on her face. "What is it that's making you so happy, Crystal?" Yale squeezed his way to her. She lost her smile instantly. "Nothing. It's none of your business." In fact, she wasn't his type. But buttering her up was his only way to a wealthy life. Now that he was being turned down over and over again, his temper was getting the best of him. "Crystal, just why can't you look at others? I've liked you for so many years. But you keep following him. No matter how far you follow him, he won't look back at you once. That's none of your concern. I'm willing to do that. We can't force our feelings on someone. I usually draw a clear line between the things I like and hate. Stop wasting your time on me. I'll marry Sova." Yale sighed. "Fine, I know that you'll never like me. I wish you happiness with him in advance. Cheers. I'll stay out of your sight in the future." "Really, you'll stay out of my sight in the future after the toast?" "That's for sure. I'm a man of my word." "Great. Cheers." Crystal took a glass of wine from the waiter and downed it all. Excitement bloomed in her chest at the thought of having her wish granted tonight. However, she didn't notice the meaningful glint in Yale's eyes. The party had yet to end, but Olivia decided to leave because she didn't intend to stay any longer. "I'll walk you back to your room. The road is slippery because of the weather." Linus came up to her. "It's all right. You have to entertain the guests. I can return to my room myself." She rejected his offer. As soon as she left, Crystal stopped Ethan. "Sova, I feel dizzy. Can you take me back to my room?" He slightly frowned. "There are maids everywhere here. It won't be good if the two of us spend time alone. But I want you to be the one to take me back to my room. I have a secret present for you." "I'm not interested in that. What if it's about your ex-wife?" His brows creased deeper. "My ex-wife." Judging from her response, Ethan knew that it was highly possible that it was a lie. She was setting up a trap for him. What a big idiot. Chapter 1138. Ethan knew what Crystal was up to very well. He had noticed it since Tatiana offered him the glass of wine. He deemed it disdainful. Although it was a simple yet effective method, he thought that it was humiliating for someone like Crystal to do that. She had her own calculations, and he had his own plan. He stopped in his tracks after following her for a while. She looked at him. "What's wrong?" "I think I left my phone on the couch. You should get back to your room. I'll go look for you later." "What if you don't come?" Obviously, Crystal wasn't willing to let that happen. Ethan questioned back, "Do you think that I won't go look for you when you have clues about Liv? She's everything to me." Even though it hurt her to hear him say that, Crystal was assured that he would come later. "I'll wait for you in the room, then." Ethan hummed in response and turned away to leave. His nether regions were slightly burning, indicating that the drug was kicking in. He had drunk the alcohol without concern because he had a way to solve it. Excitement got the best of Crystal when she thought that Ethan was going to come in a while. She hurried back to her room to change into something sexy. However, she was afraid that she might scare him away. After contemplation, she turned off the lights. With the help of the darkness and the drug, she bet Ethan wouldn't be able to rein in his urges, especially if he couldn't see her face. When the morning sun rose, everything would be settled. The idea of that possibility elicited a smile on her face. This day had finally come. The vehement emotions almost brought her to tears of joy. Throughout her one-sided crush journey, she had been courting Ethan for years. It felt as though a flower was going to bloom from the mud. Crystal waited in silence. She even left the door ajar so that Ethan could enter the room easily. Slowly, she felt her body burning. She wondered, what's happening to me? Is it because I'm too excited? Since she didn't have that kind of experience, fear and excitement intertwined in her. Crystal heard incoming footsteps and thought that Ethan was coming. Excited, she sprang up to welcome him. The moment he entered the room and closed the door, she hugged him from behind. Ethan, do you know how long I've been waiting for today? The man didn't say anything. Instead, he turned around and hugged her. She was so happy that her body was trembling. She thought, Ethan is hugging me. Is this real? Carefully, she caressed the man's skin. When she touched his jawline, she was thrown onto the bed before the man's lips touched hers. Things were going according to her plan. No words could describe how happy she was right now. Tears were pooling in Crystal's eyes. Her long and earnest wish was finally granted today. She knew that her plan would be successful once he woke up tomorrow. Ethan would marry her. The journey had been tough, but it was worth it. She hugged the man and kept confessing in his ears, Ethan, I love you. Unbeknownst to her, the silent man was smiling the whole time. It was an evil smile, mocking Crystal for her naivety and stupidity. In fact, he wished the next day to come more than she did. Things would be interesting. Chapter 1139. Olivia returned to her room first. The moment she stepped through the door, she felt unwell. She felt a pulsing down there. She wondered, did someone drug me? After contemplation, she reckoned that the wine from Tatiana was the only thing that was off. Olivia didn't expect someone like Tatiana to stoop to such a lowly deed. It seemed like she didn't care about her reputation as long as she could marry Crystal to Ethan. Olivia filled the bathtub with water and dipped herself in it, wanting to cool herself down. The longer she spent in the water, the hotter she felt. She wondered if it was because of the warm water. She stood up and put on a robe, figuring that she needed an injection. Olivia recalled the scene of taking the drink with Ethan. Tatiana's glass of wine was surely untainted. In order to make sure that the plan was a success, both the other glasses must have been drugged. As an afterthought, Olivia bet that Ethan was suffering as she was right now. Tatiana's objective was to bring Ethan and Crystal together. They would think of something to bring him to her. Where was the man now? Just then, someone knocked on the door. Who's there? Olivia asked, alarmed. She thought, still, I'm a guest. Tatiana wouldn't be so daring as to set me up, would she? It's me. It was a familiar voice. Olivia wasn't that surprised to hear his voice. She opened the door. How did you? Before she could finish, Ethan pinned her against the wall and closed the door. His breath brushed her neck. It was warmer than usual. Olivia guessed it right, he was drugged as well. Liv, you smell so good. How could she not smell good when she spent so long in the bathtub? Are you okay? No. His fingers found their way beneath her clothes, leaving coldness on her skin. She pushed him. Stop it. This is the Heath residence. Liv, I'm at my limits. He shut her with a kiss, drowning out her voice. She fought back for a while before caving in the end. It had been days since she last had sex with him, so it took a single seductive move to make her knees go weak. At that moment, there was another knock on the door. As though someone poured cold water over her, Olivia pulled her senses back. Who is it? Her voice trembled uncontrollably. Vanessa, are you feeling unwell? Is that why you left the party earlier? It was Linus. Ethan bit the tip of her ear. He cares for you so much. She quelled the urge to moan. She tried her best to sound calm and normal. Thanks for the concern, Mr. Heath. I simply returned to my room because I was feeling tipsy. How are you feeling right now? Do you need something to eat? Olivia shrieked, then glared at the naughty Ethan. Vanessa, what's wrong? Linus sounded anxious. He almost barged into the room. She quickly answered, I'm fine. I almost tripped and fell. That's all. I didn't drink much. I'm just tired. It's getting late. I'm going to bed soon. Open the door. I'll leave after making sure that you're fine. She coldly refused, saying, that won't do. We're grown-ups. What if someone sees us alone at this late hour? Although I can't remember who my husband is, I'm a married woman. Chapter 1140. There wasn't any change in Linus' tone. Are you sure you're all right? I'm a doctor, Mr. Heath. I know my condition very well. Thanks for the concern. It's getting cold. You should rest up. The footsteps faded out, and Ethan buried his face in her neck. Linus has taken a liking to you. Linus and Olivia had been getting along as friends, and he had been showing an interest in her. Although Olivia thought that it was not that likely, she could feel that he was paying a little too much attention to her. She couldn't distinguish the cause of such attention, whether it was due to love or gratitude. Don't take everything as a love matter. Ethan bent over to carry her to the bed. You're still as naive as ever, Liv. There's no such thing as pure goodwill. When a man cares for a woman, it can't be anything else than love. Her tresses lay across the sheet. He held a strand of it to his nose to sniff it. Unfortunately, you're mine and can only be mine. The night was meant to be a crazy night. Tatiana brought over a basin of water to Mason's side. Tatiana had mixed Olivia's herbs in it so that he could have a foot spa. Mason, we've known each other for decades. We've been through thick and thin together. Now, we're already over 70 years old. Time really does fly. He lifted her chin. You're still beautiful. I'm the only one aging. She was younger than him by over 10 years. Long years of dedication to work had definitely taken a toll on his appearance, unlike her. Tatiana did facial care every day. Rather than a couple, they appeared more like a father and daughter. She held Mason's hand. Nonsense. Everyone grows old. Marrying you is the luckiest thing that ever happened to me. There's only one thing left on my mind, our children. I know what you want to say, but Ethan ain't willing to marry her. I can't just force him with a knife over his neck, can I? There's no need for that. I'm just asking for your support if I have a better idea to make him marry her. Are you thinking about those underhanded methods again? I'm telling you, the situation now is totally different. My status back then was different from Ethan's. Mason clearly had some bad experiences with that. It doesn't matter how we make it work. What matters is it works. I've given you plenty of time. Since you can't deal with him, leave it to me. He realized something. No wonder you insisted on me hosting this party. You told me that you wanted to look for someone suitable for Linus. But you're actually up to something else. Have you ever thought about your identity? Put the possibility of success aside. Even if the plan is successful, do you want Ethan to look down on us forever? Tatiana's expression turned cold. I only know that you taught me that there's nothing I can't do as long as I give my all in whatever I do. Mason placed his hand over his chest. Did I say that so that you could do such shameless deeds? You're seriously going to give me a heart attack. Where are they? Stop them. Hurry. She sneered. It's too late. The maid told me that she heard noises coming from the room. I'm afraid Ethan is giving Crystal all his love, mistaking her for Olivia. He slapped her. Just what did you do?